It's interesting that Brenda mentioned my first book, because I realized that my first book is 36 years old, and that I hadn't read from it since it first came out. So I thought that I would, for my own pleasure, read a few poems that this 26-year-old wrote. And I hope that you will indulge me. I hadn't heard her voice in a long time. And I thought she was just fantastic. And she's just willing to just jump off a bridge. I mean, it's unbelievable. So I took a few lessons from her today. This is a poem titled Strangers. Can you all hear me? Indeed, the tulips change tense too quickly. They open and fly off. And, holding absolutes at bay, the buds tear through the fruit trees, steeples into sky. Faith is where we are less filled with ourselves and are expected nowhere, though it's better to hurry. The starlings keep trying to thread the eyes of steeples. It's hard. You can't cross over. The skin of the pear tree is terse like the pear, and the acorn knows finally the road not taken in the oak. We have no mind in a world without objects. The vigor of our way is separateness, the infinite finding itself strange among the many. Dusk, when objects lose their way, you throw a small red ball at me and I return it. The miracle is this: the perfect arc of red we interrupt over and over until it is too dark to see, reaches beyond us to complete only itself. And because it's this season, over and over stitch. Late in the season, the world digs in. The fat blossoms hold still for just a moment longer. Nothing looks satisfied, but there is no real reason to move on much further. This isn't a bad place. Why not pretend we wished for it? The bushes have learned to live with their haunches. The hydrangea is resigned to its pale and inconclusive utterances. Towards the end of the season, it is not bad to have the body, to have experienced joy as the mere lifting of hunger is not to have known it less. The tobacco leaves don't mind being removed to the long racks. All uses are astounding to the used. There are moments in our lives which, threaded, give us heaven. Noon, for instance, or all the single victories of gravity, or the kudzu vine, most delicate of manias, which has pressed its luck this far this season. It shines a gloating green. Its edges darken with impatience, a kind of wind. Nothing again will ever be this easy. Lives being snatched up like dropped stitches, the dry stalks of daylilies marking a stillness we can't keep. And one more, which I found which surprised me. Of course, these are none of the ones I put in my, or mostly not the ones I put in my selected, because I had no idea what I was doing. I went to this book today thinking, wow. Just because I found it in my mother's house. I don't even think I own a copy of it. Flooding. Just rain for days, and everywhere it goes, it fits. Like a desire become too accurate to be of use. The water, a skirt, the world is lifting and lifting like a debt ceiling. And everywhere you go, you are the land between the lakes. The stroke of luck which has the world it splits in two for wings. Our ponds are almost joined. How much more than what we wished for must we get? How much more than plenty? Too much of a good thing. Too much. The head becoming crown. And how this Cinderella land is in full dress, ballooning, overriding all ramifications, her gown lifting and lifting from marsh to pond to the lap of the the long-legged guest. And where she comes from, I can't say, although I think it's from the peaks of new desires to these, our living rooms, where love is turning out the lights when others do, a curfew we would take for sales. What is it must be given back before it disappears? The land between the lakes is growing thin. Turn out the lights, I think, or water will. I'm going to read a poem from my second book. Two poems, and one from my second book and one from a subsequent book that deal with history in different ways, which is sort of what came into my work after that first book. Two paintings by Gustav Klimt. I think part of the theme of the evening is going to sort of be this, what has been in these first three poems already, the sense of what to do when desire or brims itself and becomes something else, which leads to our demise, but which starts out as a force in us which animates us and makes us capable of beauty and love until we kill everything. Two paintings by Gustav Klimt. I would say that the word Buchenwald means beech forest. And there's a famous painting by Klimt, which is of a beech forest, and obviously there are those paintings that you all know of portraits of women. And this is actually based on an actual story about a painting that was found in his studio unfinished when he died. Although what glitters on the trees, row after perfect row, is merely the injustice of the world, the chips on the bark of each beech tree catching the light, the sum of these delays is the beautiful, the human beautiful, body of flaws. The dead would give anything, I'm sure, to step again onto the leaf rot, into the avenue of mottled shadows, the speckled, broken skins. The dead, in their sheer open parenthesis, what they wouldn't give for something to lean on that won't give way. I think I would weep for the moral nature of this world, for right and wrong, like pools of shadow and light, you can step in and out of, crossing this yellow beech forest, this Buchenwald, one autumn afternoon, late in the 20th century, in hollow light, in gaseous light, to receive the light and return it, and stand in rows, anonymous, is a sweet secret even the air wishes it could unlock. See how it pokes at them in little hooks, the blue air, the yellow trees. Why be afraid? They say when Klimt died suddenly, a painting still incomplete was found in his studio. A woman's body open at its point of entry, rendered in graphic, pornographic detail, something like a scream between her legs. Slowly, feathery, he had begun to paint a delicate garment, his trademark, over this mouth of her body. The mouth of her face is genteel, bored, feigning a need for sleep. The fabric defines the surface, the story, so we are drawn to it, its blues and yellows glittering like a stand of beech trees late one afternoon in Germany in fall. It is called Buchenwald. It is 1890. In the finished painting, the argument has something to do with pleasure. This is a poem from the following book, The End of Beauty, and my mother is here tonight, and in this poem, her mother appears when she was the age that my mother is now. And I should say that the word billions appears in here, and this again is another poem that has slight references to the Holocaust, and the word billions does not refer obviously to people killed in World War II. It refers in the poem to all the people who have as yet lived and died on the planet, so all the living and the dead. And, otherwise, you'd think my math had gone insane. I mean, it's enough to make your math go insane, but it doesn't mean that. This was based on a current event in the late 80s. I don't think there's anything else I need to. From the New World. Has to do with the story about the girl who didn't die in the gas chamber, who came back out asking for her mother. Then the next coil, where the guard, Ivan, since the 50s, an auto worker in Cleveland, orders a man on his way in to rape her. Then the narrowing, the tightening, but not in hunger. No, the witness recollecting this on the stand somewhere in Israel in February 87, should you be keeping track, has to do with her coming back out, asking for her mother. Can you help me in this? Are you there in your stillness? Is it a real place? God knows I too want the poem to continue, want the silky swerve into shapeliness, and then the click shut, and then the issue of sincerity, the glossy, diamond-backed skin. Will you buy me? Will you take me home? About the one who didn't die, her face still there on the new stalk of her body as the doors open. The one who didn't, like a relentless treble, coming back out right here into the thing we call daylight, but which is what now, unmoored? The one time I knew something about us, though I couldn't say what, my grandmother, then already ill, took me by the hand, asking to be introduced. And then, no, you are not Jorie, but thank you for saying you are. No, I'm sure. I know her, you see. I went into the bathroom, locked the door, stood in front of the mirrored wall, not so much to see in, not looking up at all, in fact, but to be held in it as by a gas, the thing which was me there in its chamber. Reader, they were all in there. I didn't look up. They were all in there, the coiling and uncoiling billions, the about to be seized, the about to be held down, the about to be held down, bit clean shaped, and the others too, the ones gone back out, the ending wrapped round them, hands up to their faces, why, I don't know. And the about to be stepping in, one form at a time, stepping in as if to stay clean, stepping over something to get into here, something there on the floor now dissolving, not looking down but stepping up to clear it, and clearing it, stepping in, without existence and then with existence, then into the clearing as it clamps down all round, then into the fable as it clamps down. We put her in a home, Mother paid. We put him in a home, Mother paid. There wasn't one that would take both of them we could afford. We were right. We put him down the road. It's all there was. There was a marriage of 50 years. You know this already. Don't you fill in the blanks. They never saw each other again. Paralyzed on his back the last few years, he bribed himself a private line. He rigged the phone so he could talk, etc. You know this. We put her in X. She'd fallen out. We put her back in. There in her diaper, sitting with her purse in her hands all day, every day, asking, can I go now? Meaning him, meaning the apartment, by then long since let go. You know this, don't you? Sifting wind, sorting and resorting the stuff, flesh, now the sunstruck field beyond her window, now her hands on the 40s sunburst silver clasp, the white patent leather pocketbook. I stood there, let the silver down all over my shoulders, the sink, the gold speck formica, the water uncoiling, then the click like a lock being tried, then the hollow caressing the back of my neck, then the whole thing like a benediction you can't shake off, and the eyes unfastening, nervous, as if they smelled something up there and had to go. Don't wait for me. The eyes lifting up into the decoration, the eyes looking. Poor thing, as if real, as if in the place, the twitch where the eyes meet the eyes, a blush. You see, it's not the matter of her coming back out alive, is it? It's the asking for, the please, isn't it? Then the man standing up, the witness screaming, it's him, I'm sure, Your Honor, I'm sure. Then Ivan coming up to him, and Ivan, you saw this, offering his hand, click, whoever he is, and the old man getting a dial tone, friend, and old whoever clicking and unclicking the clasp, the silver knobs. Shall we end on them? A tracking shot, a close-up on the clasp, a two-headed beast, it turns out, made of silvery leaves. Where would you go now? Where? Screaming, it's him, it's him. At the point where she comes back out, something begins. Yes, something new, something completely new. But what? There underneath the screaming. What? Like what, I wonder, to make the bodies come on, to make room. Like what? I whisper. like, which is the last new world, like, which is the thin young body before it's made to go back in, whispering, please. I'm going to read from my new book, Place, a few poems, and then if I have time, a few new poems. Since I have exactly 3 new poems in the last 3 years, it gives me some pleasure to actually utter that phrase. Whether I have the courage to read them, another matter. Treadmill. The road keeps accepting us. It wants us to learn nowhere. Its shiny emptiness, its smile of wide days, so swollen with void. It really means it. This is not a vacation. It wants us to let our sculled-in mind, its channels and runnels, its slimy, stalked circuits connecting wildly. It, the road, wants us right now to cast it, the mind, from its encasement forward, to race up ahead and get a feel for what it is, this always receding, this place in which you were to deposit your question, the destination. The mind is meant to want this, isn't it? Meant to rage, to handle it, to turn it round, to feel all its facets, its fine accidents, death by water, death by wearing out, death by surprise, death by marriage, death by having rummaged into the past, into the distant past, death by ice core and prediction. The entrails are lying on 1,000 years of tabletops. Have you not looked into them enough, says the grayish road, hissing, or maybe that is my mind. I entered the poem here on line 28 at 6:44 p.m. I had been trying to stay outside. I had not wanted to put my feet here too, but the wind came up, a little Achilles wind. The city itself took time off from dying to whisper into my ear, we need you. The complaint which we will nail once again to the door must be signed by everyone. Everyone needs to be walking together. Everyone must feel the dust underfoot. Death by drought, death by starvation, death by neglect, death by no cause of death, by unfolding, oh, the rose garden, dew still on it, the dry fields in each drop held up by the petal. Look, you can see the cracks in the soil reflected right there, puritanical, dried fields, sincerity at utmost in the fissured field. The screen is empty, is full of cracked soil, the soil, death by transcendent truth, death by banking practice, by blueprint and mutually assured destruction, death by deterrent, detergent, derangement, defamation, deregulation, the end of the line where the tracks just stop and who is that coming from the woodshed to greet you? The end is always cheerful, says the day, hurrying alongside as you splice through it, as you feel your astonishing aloneness grow funnily winged. Who are you going to be someday? Who are you going to be when all this clay flowing through you has finally become form and you catch a glimpse of yourself at daybreak there in the shiny, broken-faced surface? Who was awaiting you all day that you hurried so? What was it you were told to accomplish? Death, rimless stare. Oh, hasn't enough time passed by now? Can the moving walkway be shut down for the night? But no, it is told. It is told. The universe is in your mind as it expands, and it is October once again, as it must be, the new brightness. And again, gold lays down on them, the tight rolls of hay, the long rows, the cut fields, which winter eyes, hidden as it is at the core of everything, and the crows sharpen their blade calls on the morning, and frost blooms its parallel world, and the road seems to want to be spooled into your hands, into your mind, fine yarn you would ravel back to its place of origin. Is it true some people are not coming along with us? Is it really true there is a road not taken? And it is October once again, as it must be, the new brightness, the harvest, the dance. And your dance partner, be prudent. It really knows the steps. Between poems, it's okay. You can take the call. At least it's not my phone. That's the only thing I feel good about. Okay, I've not read this poem before, but people keep writing that they like it, and I don't. But it always ends up, in accounts of the book as. So let's try it out. What do you say? I'm going to try it out. The Shore Place. This does take place in France. I only say that because it involves a nailing, subsequent growths of a wisteria to a very tall wall, and not many places in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where you can do that. The Shore Place. Outside the window this morning, I reached to it, the newest extension here at second story of the wisteria vine, the 10th summer's growth, the August 13th portion of the root ball planted when still the mother of a new child, one almost tired-looking, very silent, out-arriving tendril. What kind of energy is this in my hands, this tress of glucose and watery scribbling, something which cannot reach conclusion, my open palm just under it, the outermost question being asked me by the world today. It is weak. It is exactly the right weakness. We have other plans for your life, says the world, wind coming from below with the summery tick in it, where it rounds and tucks up from fullness, where it allows one to hear the rattling and the millions of now drying seed pods hanging in the trees, off the walls, under the hedges. Every leaf has other plans for you, say the minutes, also the seconds, also the tiniest fractions of whatever atoms make this a hot, breezeless day in which what regards the soul is what it has given back. When the sky is torn, when the seas are poured forth, the wisteria in my hand, who made it? Who made it right? What does it know of the day of reckoning? Is today its day? I could pull it, my vine, down. I could rip it out. Still, no day of reckoning. The day, it is said, when no soul can help another. Each is alone. The unseen will say, do not hoard me. Do not. As I hold its tether in the morning light slant, as the horizon does not seem to hoard the unseen, so also the ideas are not emptied. Look, I am holding one. Shall we say that this instant is the end of time, where I raise my hand into the advancing morning, where the dawn cool lifts to let the stillness of midday be seen here underneath these low-flowing falling mists, which all the long time are still and waiting for that one heat which will not change its face, even when the horseman rides up in its time and the face of the heat stays, shimmer stays, and the knives of the day turn blade out in the long corridor of noon which comes looking for this tendril, and I hold it tight to the stone as I bring the string round it, not to crush the sucrose and glucose in it, but still to hold it back that the as yet unformed blossoms that would channel up it might channel up it, coming finally to spawn in long grape-like drooping, which the bees next month, what is that, will come to inhabit, a slowness which is exactly the right slowness. And I tell you, I can feel in it that one crisp thought, which I must find a way to fix upon this wall, driving a nail in now, and then a length of string around which to wrap this new growth, for it to cling and to surpass, so that next week, when I look again, it will have woven round its few more times and grown hairy in its clinging and gotten to a new length, which we will be called upon to tie back, new knot, new extension, to the next on nail yet further up on what remains on what's left of this wall. This poem, I do not think is a, there's no more water here. I don't think this poem is an allegory, simply because it takes place on an actual hill with an actual creature that I encountered. And just because I say things that transpire between me and the creature is known for being in many fables, I don't think that this poem is fabulistic, but you're free to think it is. I actually do plan to build a root cellar, and if I had one already built, I would be guarding it in the way that the person is guarding their food in this poem. So I just think of it as a slight projection into the immediate and most literal future. Lo, at the forest's edge, a fox came out. It looked at us. Nobody coming up the hill hungry, looking to take food. The fox eye trained. Nobody coming up the hill in the broad daylight with an axe for wood, for water, for the store in the pantry. I stock the pantry. I watch for rain, for too much rain, too fast, too little, too long. When dryness begins, I hear the woods click. Unusual. I hear the arid. Unusual. My father is dying of age. Good, that is usual. My valley is, my touch, my sense, my law, my soil, my sensation of my first person. Now everything is clear. Facts lick their tongue deep into my ear. Visiting hour is up. We are curled on the hook we placed in our brain and down our throat into our hearts, our inner organs. We have eaten the long fishing line of the so-called journey and taken its fine piercing into our necks, backs, hands. It comes out our mouths, it re-enters our ears, and in it goes again, deep, the dream of ownership. We count up everything to make sure we are all here in it together, the only shareholders, the applause lines making the tightening line gleam, the bottom line. How much did you think you could own? The first tree we believed was a hook, we got it wrong. The fox is still standing lying there. It is staring. It is not scared. There is nothing behind it, beyond it, no value. The story of Eden revision. We are now breaking into the garden. It was for the interglacial lull protected from us. Now we have broken in, have emptied all the limbs, the streaming fabric of light, milliseconds, leaves, the now inaudible birds, whales, bees, have in these days made arrangements to get compensation from what we know not, but the court says we are to be compensated for our way of life being taken from us. Fox says, what a rough garment your brain is. You wear it all over you. Fox says, language is a hook. You got caught. Try pulling somewhere on the strings, but no, they are all through you. Had you only looked down, Fox says, look down to the road and keep your listening up. Fox, will you not move on, my heart thinks, checking the larder, the locks. Fox says, your greed is not precise enough. I thought it was funny, too. I think I have time for 2 more poems. And I've not read this one before either, so Earth. Into the clearing, shimmering, which is my owned land, between 2 patches of woods near dawn, clock running as usual, the human in me watching as usual. I'm not going to be able to get this poem right. I'm not going to read it. Forget it. Okay, lapse. This poem takes place in Iowa City and during the summer solstice when my child was an infant, the first time that, one of the first times that I pushed her in a swing, one of those little bucket swings. I know that I've said this before when I read this poem, those of you who've heard it before, but she is now a 30-year-old attorney, and she doesn't like the fact that it's dated summer solstice 1983 Iowa City because it should be dated 1984. And the fact is, I tried to explain that 1984 was an iconic date I didn't want to use in the poem. And so she made me promise that I would always say this before I read the poem. It's not exactly a contract, but she is my only child, so. Lapse. It is entirely in my hands now as it returns like blood to remind me the chains so soft from where, in my right, in my left, the first time I, trying for perfection, of balance, of symmetry, strap your 22 pounds of eyes, blood, hair, bone, so recently inside me, into the swing. And the sun still in the sky, though it being so late, as I look up to see where this small package is to go, sent up by these 2 hands into the evening that won't stop, won't lower as it should into the gloam. Is it going to last forever? And the grace that I feel at the center of my palms, as if my hands were leaves and light were coursing through some hole in their grasp, the machine of time coming in, as chlorophyll could. I was not yet so tired of believing. I was still in the very beginning of being human, the thing no one can tell another. He didn't find what he searched for. She didn't understand what she desired. The style of the story being the very wind which comes up now as I glide down the chains to the canvas bucket to pull you to me, eyes closed as your eyes close, and for the first time in this lifetime, lift you back and up as far as I can, as high as I can, then let you collapse so suddenly as I push you away from me, with more force than gravity as I summon from within what I try to feel is an accurate amount, a right fraction of my strength. Not too much promise, not too much greed or ambition or sense of beginning or capacity for dream. No, just the amount to push you by that corresponds to pity. Who knows how to calculate that strong, firm force, as if I were sending a message forth that has to be delivered, and the claimant expects it, one of so many, accompanied by my prayer that you be spared from anything at all, from everything, and of course also its opposite, that everything happen to you in large sheets of experience. As I tug back the chain ends and push you out, telling you to put out your legs and pump, although you do not know what I am saying, as you have not yet spoken your first word, not yet on that day that seems even now it will never end, as you come back to me and I catch you, and this time, of course, as I am human, I push a little harder, as if the news I was shouting out had not quite been heard, as if the next push were the real one, the one that asks for the miracle. Will I live or die if I pick this fruit? As it is sent back to my waiting hands, and this time it's stronger. The yes is taking over, your yes and my yes, and our greed to overcome what? Into this first ever solstice with you in the born world. Let no one dare pick this fruit, I think, as I cast the roundness of you up again now, so high, into a mouth of sky, agape yet without wonder, as if it eats everything and anything and does not know what day is or time. This is our time, and that this next on meal is being fed it. As just under you, the oval puddle from the recent rain lies in the worn declivity where each one before you has dug in her feet to push off or to stop. And in it you flash as you go by, giving me for that instant an eye, you, its iris blinking, the crucible of a blink in the large, unflinching eye opened by the hundreds of small hopes taking on gravity at push-off, and then the fatigue when for all the pumping and rising and how you could see over the tops of the houses, up and over to where your own house is down there, and the housing development and the millions of leaves and the slower children lagging behind on the small road beneath until the world stills and you alone are life, a huge bloom, a new force entering. How then, even then, the sensation of enough swarms, and thought, or something like it, resumes, and your mind is again in your hard grip on the chains which had been until then as if unknown to your body during what might have been the interglacial lull, or the period during which the original ooze grew single-cell organisms, which grew small claws and feet, and then had to have eyes, till your hands become again hard, heavy, and all the yearning re-enters you as lifetime, and your feet learn to break by scratching the ground a bit more each time, and that is where the I comes from, the final oscillations, the desire to be done with vision. What this morning's rain reminds us is still there beneath us in an earth that will only swallow you entire, no matter what we push into it, as here you and I again and again redo the moment 9 months ago you first began to push and cry out into the visible world. It is here with me today in this hand grasping this pen, the weight of my transmission of force into you. the weight of catching you the first few times, the slow disappearance of your flesh from mine as you hardly need a push when the centrifuge takes hold and I just tap you a bit to keep you going, and we both feel the chains each in our own way as they permit you to see over the given you shall never enter, no matter how long time is, never. That gash you create in the evening air at your highest, your own unique opening, which you can never fill, cannot ever crawl back through and out, except when that one moment comes and it will open and you will go once and once only, and then, yes, you will. I brought you in here, I think, in the evening, in the grass and the town and the blinking windows, in the dozens of lowering suns circling us in them.